Hey, Pastor, are you wanting to record and post your sermons online, but don't want them to look like this?
Thank you, Brother Horn. Good to see you tonight. Oh, I've been enjoying myself today, rejoicing in the goodness of the Lord.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm a pastor of a small church, and we live on a small budget. And so when I began researching equipment to record my sermons to post online, I was overwhelmed by how expensive some of these cameras were. And so I started, like many, and I just used my cell phone. The problem with the cell phone is I had to set it up in the front row, which was a little distracting to the people around, and it would pick up all of the background noises, so the audio was terrible. Next, I went to a camcorder, and I researched, and I got the best camcorder I could find and afford, and I was able to put it all the way at the back of the sanctuary so it wasn't distracting others. But unfortunately, it was kind of grainy, and again, the audio wasn't very good. Now, the distance between where I normally preach from and where our sound booth is, where I record from, is about 40 feet. Now, that's a big distance to cover and still have a good, clear, crisp image. Now, fortunately, I was able to find a camera that could do just that. And so what I've done is I've put together exactly what equipment you need so that you can record your sermons or even live stream them so they look good and they don't break the budget. And so there are 7 pieces of equipment, and every one of these pieces I'm going to put a link to in the description below so that you can see exactly what they're going for right now. And so the first piece of equipment is obvious, it's a camera. And the camera I bought is a Canon SL3, and it has some important features, but 2 that are really important for what we're doing is it has the ability to have an external microphone attached to it, which I'm using right now. And it also has this feature, I didn't know what this was, and so don't feel bad if you don't know what this is. It's called a clean HDMI out, and we'll get to why that's important in a little bit. And so you need a good camera. This particular camera comes in all kinds of packages on Amazon, but it's really important that you get the package in the link below because of the zoom lens it comes with. Again, most of our sermons hopefully are going to be recorded from the back of our sanctuary. And this zoom lens has some features that called image stabilization. I don't know exactly how it works, but it makes you not be shaky when it's recording you. And also, as it zooms in and out, it doesn't create noise. It's kind of silent that way. So that zoom lens is really, really important. So the camera, next you need a microphone. That's the second piece of equipment. We found this external microphone after doing a little bit of research. It's only about $40 on Amazon, and so there's a link to it below. The next piece of equipment you need is something called an HDMI converter. And I had no idea what this was. My wife figured this out, but it basically converts a signal from your camera to your computer to the point that your camera basically becomes a webcam, which is pretty awesome. And so you'll need that. Now you need to attach your camera to your computer, which is the fourth piece of equipment, and that's an HDMI to HDMI. You'll need a mini HDMI to regular HDMI to make that connection. Another cable you'll need is for your external microphone, and so you'll need a 25-foot, that's what I got, I tried to go longer, 25-foot cord for that. Another piece of equipment, it's very small, but it can be very helpful, is a microphone adapter. And this allows you to mount your external microphone onto just a standard boom mic stand, so you can kind of get it up in the air and out of the way. And then lastly, you'll need a tripod. And so that's it. 7 pieces of equipment. That's all you need, and they all total for around $1,100. Now, there are 2 pieces of equipment that I might add that we've purchased that you might want to consider. One is a 50mm lens that has an f aperture, I don't even know what that means, of 1:8, and that's what gives you the lens blur like we have in the background here. The other is a ring light. It's an 18-inch ring light that provides lighting that's adjustable, which allows you to take the light as high or as low as you want, but also adjust the brightness to it. It's about $80 on Amazon. So those are a couple of things that you might want to consider purchasing. One other thing we just purchased, because we were tired of fighting the battery on this camera, is we got an adapter that'll allow us to plug this into an outlet, and so you might consider that as well. So those are the pieces of equipment. Let's go on to the steps that I go through for recording a sermon. And I'm going to give you two options. One is the quarantine edition because, well, that's how we're all recording our sermons right now in empty sanctuaries until these social distancing requirements are lifted. But then I'll give you, of course, the worship edition when soon we'll be able to have our pews filled with people, and we'll be recording a bit differently then. So with the quarantine edition, the first step is to set up your camera and tripod. When you do that, you want to make sure that your podium is in good placement, that it's aimed so it's not chopping off your head as it records. There's no distracting things in the background, this kind of thing. Next, you'll want to set up your lighting, and this is really important because no matter how good your video or audio are, if your lighting is bad, your video will be bad. Now, most people recommend having a light in front, one to the left and one to the right, and that pretty much eliminates all the shadowing. You also want it to be up high and not down low. And I'll show you the lighting that we have. And as you can see, I'm using the ring light, but I'm also using just some lights that I found around the church because you can really use any lights you have. You just want to make sure that they use white bulbs and that you cover them with wax paper so that it's soft light and not harsh light. So get that lighting looking nice and look at it through your camera to make sure that it's looking nice, and obviously keep your lights out of visibility of what the camera is recording. The next step is to set up your audio. Now this is real simple. You take your external microphone, you put it on your boom mic stand like we have, and you connect the wire at the microphone, you connect the wire at the camera, and you're good to go. After that, step 4 is to prepare for recording. So you'll want to do just a check 1, 2 basically. Go back, hit the record button, get exactly where you're going to stand, speak in a way that you would normally speak, and do a check 1, 2 like this. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Try and see how the audio sounds and the video looks. This will let you see if there's any weird shadowing going on, or if the sound is off, or if there's something in the view of the camera. You want to do that before you record your entire sermon. After that, you want to start recording. That's the next step. So just press the record. Now you can only record up to 30 minutes on this setup. So don't be long-winded, Pastor. Try to keep it under that time frame. If you go beyond that, it's going to stop recording. Now, after you record, the 6th step is to simply remove the SD card and put it into your computer for editing and trimming. If you don't have an SD card reader on your computer, you can do a USB to USB to transfer the file. Now, after you've trimmed it, edited it, the 7th and final step is to simply upload it. YouTube, Facebook, your website, whatever you want to do. Now, something that's going to be really helpful for you, or frustrating to you depending on, is noting your speed, your internet speed at your church where you're uploading. So we actually called our internet provider and had them up the speed and paid a little more to do that, but we noticed that the speed was not sufficient for uploading videos. And so now we're able to have an upload speed of around 4 to 5 megabits per second, whatever that means. And that seems to be sufficient for a 30-minute sermon. It takes about 90 minutes to upload. And if you do a speed test, you can just Google net speed test and click the little blue button. If you're only getting 1 to 2 megabits per second, it might not be enough, and it's definitely not going to be enough if you're live streaming. So that's the quarantine edition. Let me give you the worship edition. It's very similar, but there are some changes. And the first is, again, set up your camera and your tripod. Now for this, you're going to be putting it in the back of the sanctuary where it's not distracting people. You're going to have your zoom lens on there to make sure that you can reach all the way to the point where you're preaching from and that you have a clear line of sight to do that. Once you've got that set up, you're going to open up OBS on your computer. And you might be wondering, what is OBS? Well, there is a link to a tutorial down in the description below. Make sure to watch that before going any further with this process. But it's a very simple platform. It allows you to record or live stream. It is free, which is why I love it. and it works on Macs or PC. So you're going to open up the OBS, and the next step is to get your video into the computer onto the OBS. So to do that, you're going to take your mini HDMI to regular HDMI cord, attach it to the Cam Link HDMI converter, and then into the computer. And you'll want to pull up the video on there. This is where the clean HDMI out comes in. Make sure that is on your setting, because any of those little white boxes that move around with the autofocus or those indicators that are on your screen will end up being on your recording or your live stream unless you're doing clean HDMI out. And so you want to make sure you get your video pulled up into the OBS. Sometimes it'll give you a black screen and you've got to unplug it and replug it in. I don't know why, but try that if it's not pulling up. So now you've got your video in. Next you need your audio. And that means whatever microphone you're using, you need to get it onto your computer into the OBS. So I use an Audio-Technica lapel microphone. These are pretty common for preachers. And it goes into our soundboard, which is Allen & Heath Q16. And so our soundboard allows me to go USB to USB into our computer. And then obviously I have to make sure it's on the specific channel that my microphone goes through. So I've got my mic into the OBS, I've got my video into the OBS. Now one thing to note, we had to learn the hard way, is there might be an offset to the way your lips are moving and the way the audio is recording. And so if that's the case, you'll want to go into the audio mixer and click the settings button, and there's some advanced audio properties, and then you'll see sync offset. We did 300 milliseconds, and that helped us to keep the lips and the sound in sync. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because it's 40 feet between the camera and where I'm standing and speaking. But you'll want to make sure that that's set right, or your sermon will look like a bad Chinese film. Okay? So now you've got your audio, you've got your video coming into the OBS. The next step is to click the button that says Start Recording or Start Streaming. And then you can record as long as you want. It doesn't have to be just 30 minutes. It can be your full service, an hour, hour and a half, however long you want to record. Just hit Start Recording, and you want to record in MP4 format. After you're done, click the Stop Recording button and take the file, and this is the next step, take your file into whatever editing software you use. Often I'll just go to QuickTime, I'll trim the front, trim the back, and I'm done with it. And so whatever you use, take your file to that. And then the seventh and final step is simply to upload it to YouTube, to Facebook, to your church website. That's it. Those are the simple steps that you can use to record quality sermons on a budget. And so I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, give me a like up there, put a comment down below, and I'd love to hear from you.